Squid Game focuses on Seong Gi-hun, a down-on-his-luck man who finds himself embroiled in a series of children's games with deadly consequences. But he's just one piece of a complicated puzzle. Oh Il-nam, player 1 in the Season 1 games, is an old man with a brain tumor who occasionally appears to suffer from dementia. But while that all may be true, there's a lot more to him. In fact, Il-nam turns out to be an uber-wealthy moneylender and the originator of the games. But all that happens later, after Gi-hun believes he's responsible for Il-nam's death, then discovers that his friend was lying to him all along. On his deathbed, Il-nam tells Gi-hun why he invented the games. He explains his point of view, that the one similarity between the very rich and the very poor is that there's no longer any pleasure to be had in life for either of them. So he and his wealthy clients got together, talked it over, and created the Squid Games.
What could we all do to finally have some fun?
The first games happened in 1988. Though we don't know what was played, it's probably fair to say that the basics were there when they started. Children's games that anyone can play and win, and literal death to the losers. In Season 1, we get a brief glimpse of the game logs going back to 1988, and clearly see that there's been just one winner each year. So even though there's the promise that more than one person can win, it's never happened. This is most likely by design. After all, the games can easily keep going until there are only 2 players left. Besides, if more than one person were to win, they could band together and go to the authorities, putting the whole enterprise in jeopardy. Hwang In-ho, the current frontman, won the games in 2015. In Season 2, we find out he had a sick wife who died in 2019, though he tells Gi-hun about it like it's happening presently.
She was diagnosed with acute cirrhosis and needs a new liver.
Most likely, In-ho entered the games to pay for her treatment after he was accused of taking bribes and let go by his boss. At least that's what we think. In-ho is the very definition of an unreliable narrator. All we know for sure is that, despite winning the games and presumably a truckload of money, In-ho couldn't save his wife. And now he's the frontman. So somehow, in the intervening years, In-ho has become deeply cynical about humanity. Kang No-eul is a sniper in the games, but before that, she was a soldier in North Korea. The officer, her boss at the games, finds her quite impressive.
I couldn't believe you killed the team pursuing you with one rifle, and got past the fences at the demarcation line without any kind of help at all.
What the officer doesn't mention is that No-eul is a mother with a small child whom she had to leave behind in North Korea. She desperately wants to find her daughter, but it's been 7 years. No-eul understands what it's like to have no hope. This is what resonated with her when she initially decided to join the games. She was going to be helping the hopeless by ending their misery. She still believes in that mission, but now she realizes there's more going on behind the scenes, and she doesn't like it.
All we're doing is using their organs to help save others. What's wrong with that?
Before he participates in the games, Gi-hun is broke. He drinks and gets in bar fights. He lives with his mother and seems to rely on her for most things, constantly asking her for money and getting frustrated with what she gives him. In fact, he steals her bank card and takes money out of her account. It's not the first time either.
It should be my birthday.
PIN number changed on you, huh? Guess your mother finally abandoned you.
Gi-hun knows her well enough to guess the new one. Though the money his mother gave him was for a birthday dinner with his daughter, he uses it to play the ponies, which appears to be his main occupation. This time, he wins big, but after promising his daughter a fancy dinner, he gets his pocket picked by a young woman, leaving him empty-handed once again. It's in this broken-down state that Gi-hun agrees to play Dokji with the salesman, walking away with some extra cash and the mysterious card with the Squid Game phone number. Later, when his mother tells him his daughter is moving to America with her mother and stepfather, it pushes him to call the number and sign on to the games in hope of keeping his daughter in his life. Gi-hun and the other players wake up in the dorm, ready to play. The first game is red light, green light, with a deadly twist. Over half of the players die on the field of play. As a result, a narrow majority of the players vote to stop the games. Returned unceremoniously to his life, Gi-hun goes to the police, but no one except Officer Jun-ho believes his weird story. Meanwhile, Gi-hun's mother has been hospitalized with severe diabetes, but because Gi-hun canceled their health insurance, there's no money for treatment.
You haven't been home in days now, out doing whatever it is you're doing lately, but now you're a good son, huh?
Gi-hun returns to the games for the money to help his mom. Others have their own reasons for coming back. For example, Gi-hun's childhood friend, Cho Sung-woo, has stolen from his clients and is wanted by police. Sae-byuk, a North Korean defector like No-eul, wants to get her little brother out of an orphanage and to pay someone to smuggle her parents from the north. The players' stories are all different, but they have one thing in common. They're all desperate for money. The games resume, and they're increasingly brutal. At long last, it's down to Gi-hun, Sang-woo, and Sae-byuk. But before the final game, Sang-woo kills Sae-byuk. Whether she would have made it to the end is debatable. Sae-byuk was hiding a gash on her abdomen from the earlier glass bridge game and looked like she was close to bleeding out. Although Gi-hun begs him not to, in the final game, Squid Game, something they used to play together as children, Sang-woo stabs himself, asking Gi-hun to take care of his mother before he dies. Gi-hun wins the games, but returns home to find his mother dead. She was his reason for playing, so now what? For a year, Gi-hun suffers from crippling survivor's guilt, barely touching his winnings. Then he finds a new purpose. He wants to stop the games for good, if he can find them. Jun-ho has been looking for his brother, Hwang In-ho, since he went missing in 2015. As he overhears Gi-hun fruitlessly trying to report the games and the hundreds of murders at the police station, Jun-ho spots the mysterious invitation. His brother had one before he vanished, so Jun-ho follows Gi-hun when he re-enters the games, then chokes out one of the guards and steals his jumpsuit, going undercover.
Bring him to me alive.
Jun-ho learns a lot behind the scenes, but it all comes to a head when he's confronted by the frontman at the edge of a cliff. The frontman takes off his mask and reveals himself to be In-ho. Jun-ho's brother tries to convince him to join him in the games, but Jun-ho refuses. So instead, In-ho shoots him in the shoulder and sends him tumbling off the cliff into the water below.
You know why?
Fortunately, Jun-ho is picked up by Captain Park, but he falls into a coma, something he's just coming out of at the start of Season 2. Near Christmas, a year after winning the games, Gi-hun is drinking by the beach when a flower seller slips him a note from his gangbu asking him to come to his building on Christmas Eve. Gi-hun believes Il-nam is dead, so when they are face to face again, he has one big question.
Why did you do that to us?
Il-nam, a gamesman to the end, is more interested in betting on whether an unhoused man downstairs will make it through the night. Il-nam, with his fatalistic view of humanity, bets the man will freeze to death. Gi-hun bets that he'll be saved. And in Il-nam's final moments, Gi-hun turns out to be right. Someone does come.
Look at that. There's someone who cares.
But Il-nam has died, and we don't know if he's aware he lost his final wager. What's certain is that his death means that the frontman has taken over the games. Gi-hun starts to use his money after Il-nam's death, and one of the things he uses it on is Sae-byuk's little brother, Kang No-eul, and by extension, Sang-woo's mother, who runs a fish shop and dearly misses her son. Gi-hun gets Chul out of the orphanage and leaves him with Sang-woo's mother. The suitcase Gi-hun leaves with Chul is full of cash, along with a note saying it's the money he owes Sang-woo. After all, Sang-woo sacrificed himself for Gi-hun in the final game, even though Gi-hun wanted them to quit and walk away.
Let's go together.
As it turns out, Gi-hun couldn't have picked a better caregiver for Chul. He grows and thrives under her care, and she's no longer lonely. When the frontman tells Gi-hun to get on a plane bound for America, Gi-hun realizes he's being tracked. He gets a utility knife, finds the device behind his ear, and cuts it out. While there are certainly other ways the people from the games can get information about what he's doing and where he's going, Gi-hun has made it more difficult. Gi-hun counts this as a victory, and his determination to stop the games grows. Since taking out his tracker, Gi-hun has recruited a band of mercenaries run by his former bookie, Mr. Kim. The crew have been tasked with finding the salesman. They've been trolling the city for 2 years without a sighting.
You know what my wife says? I should find that motherfucker, get myself into the game, and bring the 45 billion won home.
Finally, Mr. Kim and his associate, Choi Woo-sak, spot the salesman playing Dokji in the subway and follow him, observing his sadistic behavior from afar. Even though Gi-hun warns them not to, they decide to take him on. They get knocked out for their trouble, then come to tied up in the salesman's apartment. There, the salesman has them play a sadistic game of rock, paper, scissors -1, where they play 2 hands and then take one back.
I was sitting there with 2 rocks like an idiot. But boss had scissors and paper.
It looks like Woo-sak is done for, but Mr. Kim disqualifies himself, dying for his friend. A year after being shot, Jun-ho comes out of his coma and enlists Captain Park to look for the island where the games take place. But there are hundreds of islands in the area where Park found Jun-ho, and after 2 years of searching, they're still no closer to locating the games.
Where the hell are you, Mystery Island?
Jun-ho decides to give up the search. That is, until his partner pulls Gi-hun over and Jun-ho recognizes him. He traces Gi-hun to the Pink Hotel. He shows up there, and after some initial hesitation on Gi-hun's part, including a conk on the head for Jun-ho, they begin working together. After Mr. Kim dies, the salesman gets Woo-sak to tell him where Gi-hun is hiding. When he and Gi-hun are again face to face, the salesman tells his own story. He was working for the games incinerating bodies when they put a gun in his hand. After he killed his own father, a player, the salesman realized he'd found his calling.
You con anyone who's almost at the end of their rope. I don't think that someone like you could ever understand what I need to say.
The salesman proposes a game of Russian roulette, but without spinning the chamber between rounds. The salesman loses, but before he does, he tells Gi-hun that the key to the person he wants to talk to is in his pocket. In the pocket is an invitation to a club on October 31st. Before he goes to the club, Gi-hun gets a tracker implanted in his tooth. It seems like the perfect plan. Who would think to check his teeth for contraband? It's Halloween when Gi-hun shows up at the club and everyone is wearing masks. This presents the perfect cover for a couple of masked guards to sneak in and steal Gi-hun away. Gi-hun gets into a limousine and Jun-ho and his crew begin to tail them. But snipers quickly take out all their cars, leaving Gi-hun on his own. Realizing this, he does the one thing he can think of.
Let me play the game again.
The next thing Gi-hun knows, he's waking up in the dorm. As a returning winner, he knows something the others don't. When the first game, red light, green light, starts, he tries to warn the other players, but it doesn't go well.
What exactly are you saying? That we're all gonna die playing red light, green light? Really?
Then the first person gets shot, and suddenly the players are hanging on his every word. Gi-hun also realizes the tracker has been removed from his tooth, and his survival is, once again, entirely up to him. But this time, there's a new wrinkle. After each game, the players vote on whether to put a stop to everything and leave, or to stay and continue playing. But once that giant hanging piggy bank begins to fill up, so many of the players are seduced by the money that a majority of them vote to stay. The same happens after the second game. But when they vote after the third game, there's a tie. Further complicating things, in a twist that feels like deja vu, the frontman is posing as player 1, using the name Hwang In-ho. Meanwhile, Jun-ho, Woo-sok, and the team of mercenaries search for Gi-hun, who's now on the island, deep into the games, making their search all the more urgent. They divide themselves between two boats to cover more ground and go off in different directions. Jun-ho and Woo-sok go with Captain Park, hot on the trail of Gi-hun's tracker. But instead of the tooth, they find the tracker in the tackle box of a random fisherman on a random island.
Are you really gonna sit here and let those people die?
How long will you keep insisting on this ridiculous story? If it's real, bring me proof!
Soon after, as the team checks out a possible entrance to the island complex, they get blown up and one of the mercenaries dies. And that's just the beginning. Later that night, one of the men catches Captain Park sabotaging their drone. He calls him out, and in a clue that was hidden in plain sight, Captain Park kills him like a trained professional and tosses the body overboard. Clearly, Captain Park is not the friend Jun-ho thought he was. After the third game, there's a 50-50 split of players who want to leave versus those who want to stay. There's also a brawl in the bathroom that results in several deaths, ensuring everyone is out for blood. But instead of turning it against the players who want to stay, Gi-hun gathers the people who want to leave and focuses their anger toward those working for the games.
We're gonna put an end to it all. They're gonna pay for everything they put us through.
When the lights go out, they hide as the players attack one another. Then, playing dead when the guards come in to shut it down, they ambush them and steal their guns. Gi-hun takes anyone who can use a gun and attempts a coup d'etat. They hold the soldiers off for a little while as they battle in the hallway leading to the frontman's office. Gi-hun and his childhood friend Jun-bae split off and head for the control room. Meanwhile, Dae-ho is sent back to the dorm to collect ammunition from the pockets of the dead soldiers.
Dae-ho! Dae-ho, can you hear me? Where are those magazine soldiers?
When Dae-ho doesn't come back though, Yoonju, the transgender woman who leads the players in the battle, returns to the dorm to find Dae-ho, only to discover him cowering by the back wall with the player non-combatants. She's about to leave with the ammo herself when the soldiers swarm in. Jung-cha stops her from taking them on single-handedly, while almost all of the other players in the hallway die. Headed for the control room, Gi-hun and Jun-bae need help, so they call Hwang In-ho for backup. Hwang In-ho and two other players come to their aid. He finds them on the stairway in the management wing of the building, but they're pinned down by the game's soldiers. Hwang In-ho suggests going around the back, which seems like a great idea. They can fire on the soldiers from both sides, giving the players a chance to win the day. But as Hwang In-ho heads off, instead of firing at the soldiers, he shoots the two players who are with him. He then radios Gi-hun with a grim message.
I'm sorry, Gi-hun.
It's over. They got us.
Now that Hwang In-ho is dead, he can return to being the frontman. Gi-hun and Jun-bae have surrendered. He then executes Jun-bae in cold blood. While that ending would be traumatic enough, there's more. In a brief post-credit scene, we see the doll that runs the red light green light game next to another boy doll as a railroad crossing sign turns from a red light to a green light. What could this post-credit scene mean for Season 3? And who will be left to play?
Now, witness the consequences of your little game.